Time for the market report, a focus on livestock this week.
That's right, Mike. We've got a few USDA reports and then a closer look at the poultry industry. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then several USDA reports updating us on U.S. livestock. And finally, we take a closer look into the history of poultry production in Mississippi. So, markets closed, still trending up with row crops and livestock split. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, corn up 8.5 cents, nearly a 2% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, cotton again, down about 3 cents. That's more than a 3.5% decrease from the previous week. So the USDA recently released some new reports concerning U.S. livestock. The big one we'll cover first, the cattle on feed report. Then we move on to the milk production and poultry slaughter reports. Here's what they had to say. In this month's cattle on feed report, cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter markets totaled over 11.5 million head, 2% higher than last year at this time. Placements in feedlots totaled over 1.5 million head, 6% higher than last year. Marketings of fed cattle during April also totaled over 1.5 million head, 10% down from last year. Other disappearance, a statistical catch-all for when cattle dies naturally or is moved to another pasture, totaled 52,000 head. 4% up from last year. In the milk production report, production in the U.S. during April this year totaled 20 billion pounds, up over 2.5% from last year. Production per cow in the U.S. averaged about 2,000 pounds for April, 14 pounds above last year. The number of milk cows on farms in the U.S. was over 9.5 million head, slightly more than last year. In the poultry slaughter report, poultry certified wholesome during April this year totaled over 4.5 billion pounds, up 6% compared to last year. Preliminary total live weight of all inspected poultry was about 6 billion pounds, up 5% from last year. Young chickens inspected totaled nearly 5.5 billion pounds, up 5%, while mature chickens totaled over 68.5 billion pounds, up 17%. Turkey inspections up 10%, while duck inspections down 7%. Young chickens slaughtered averaged over 6.6 pounds per bird, up 1% compared to last year. Average live weight of mature chickens over 7 pounds per bird, up 7%. Ante-mortem condemnations, which is when an animal is rejected for food use before death, totaled nearly 12 million pounds. Now you see how things look these days, but sometimes it's good to get an idea of how we got here. In Mississippi, we've been growing chickens for a long time, and it's our #1 ag export, believe it or not. So let's see how that came to be.
You might not know it, but Mississippi is one of the largest broiler chicken producers in the country, number 6 in the nation as of 2024, and one of 20 that produce 93% of the national total. In 2023, poultry and eggs generated $3.52 billion. How did that come about? What makes Mississippi so involved with chicken production? We need to go back to the last century to find out. During the early 1900s, the breed of a chicken was more important than its ability to produce eggs. Poultry judges were held in high regard, and exhibitions were commonly held with awards being given to the best of the breed, similar to dog shows today. In the 1920s, crossbreeding began so commercial poultry operations could find chickens who were the best layers. Suffice to say, the old-school breeders were not keen on this trend, and some still feel that way today. However, research has indicated that crossbreeding has helped create the commercial chicken varieties we use today. Throughout the 20s to 40s, it was common for hatcheries to be on or near main streets of towns, and chicks were sold over the counter in small batches, about 10 to 50 chicks. World War II saw the U.S. poultry industry grow. However, this didn't affect Mississippi until the late 40s and early 50s. During this period, more and more poultry companies began purchasing their own breeder flocks, hatcheries, feed mills, grow-out operations, and processing plants, becoming vertically integrated. By the mid-1950s, integrated poultry companies began contracting with farmers to produce eggs and broilers. In general, the contract required the company to provide chickens, feed, and technical knowledge. The farmer provided the land, house, equipment, and labor. The vast majority of Mississippi's broilers and eggs are still produced under this type of arrangement. The Extension Service and the Mississippi Poultry Improvement Association conducted numerous poultry barbecue demonstrations throughout the state to promote chicken consumption. Poultry companies hired men to work with the farmers with whom they had production contracts. These men were called servicemen. Mississippi State University conducted schools to teach the most current technology available. Approximately 150 to 300 poultry workers attended these two-day schools. The industry matured during the 60s and early 70s. Several companies ceased to operate efficiently and were purchased by other companies. The industry consolidated into fewer, larger companies, and that is how it is today.
Always interesting to see where we came from, right? That's it for a deeper look into the markets.